The silver ship spun through space like a broken toy. Inside, Ambassador Zephyra pressed her three-fingered hands against the bleeding wound in her side. Purple blood dripped onto the control panel as she tried to keep the ship steady. Around her, the bridge was dark except for the red emergency lights that blinked like dying stars. Through the cracked window, she could see her home fleet burning. The proud ships of the Cathani people were breaking apart under the attack of the Vextar war machines. Explosions lit up the darkness of space like deadly flowers. Each flash meant hundreds of her people were dying. Zephyra had been returning from peace talks when the attack began. The Vextar had promised to discuss trade routes. Instead, they brought death. Their black ships moved like hunters, destroying everything in their path. The Cathani had no real weapons. They were a peaceful people who solved problems with words, not violence. Warning, hull breach detected, life support failing, the ship's computer said in its calm voice. Zephyra ignored it. She had more important things to do than worry about dying. Her fingers moved across the communication panel. She had to send a message. Someone in the galaxy had to know what was happening here. The Galactic Council had to be warned that the Vextar were not interested in peace. They wanted to kill everyone. Emergency transmission to Galactic Council peacekeeping forces, she spoke into the recorder. This is Ambassador Zephyra of the Cathani Republic. We are under attack by Vextar forces. They are committing genocide. Our defense fleets are destroyed. Billions of civilians are in danger. Please send help immediately. Coordinates attached. She pressed the send button with shaking hands. The message shot out into space, carried by quantum waves that moved faster than light. But something was wrong. The ship's damaged system sparked and smoked. A relay station in a nearby system had been hit by Vextar weapons hours ago. The message bounced off broken equipment and changed direction. Instead of going to the Galactic Council's main base, the signal flew toward the edge of the galaxy. It traveled through empty space for weeks, getting weaker but still carrying its desperate cry for help. Finally, it reached a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Dr. Sarah Chen was working late at the radio telescope facility. She loved the quiet night shifts when she could listen to the cosmos without interruption. The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence project had been running for decades, but they had never found anything more exciting than natural radio waves from distant stars. Tonight was different. The computer started beeping loudly. Strange signals were coming from deep space. Sarah frowned and checked her equipment. Everything was working normally, but the signals were unlike anything she had ever seen. They had patterns that looked almost like language. Computer, run translation protocol, she said. The advanced AI system that SETI used for analyzing signals began working. Hours passed as it tried to understand the alien message. Sarah drank coffee and watched the progress bars slowly fill up on her screen. Finally, the computer finished. Words appeared on Sarah's monitor. Her coffee mug slipped from her hands and crashed to the floor. The message was a desperate plea for help. An entire civilization was being destroyed by something called the Vextar. Billions of people were dying. They needed help immediately. Sarah's hand shook as she reached for the phone. She called her supervisor, then the director of SETI, then officials at NASA and the Pentagon. Within hours, the message was being studied by experts around the world. Captain Marcus Torres sat in the briefing room at the United Nations Space Command headquarters. He was a veteran of humanity's small space navy, which mostly did rescue missions and asteroid mining protection. The room was full of generals, scientists, and politicians from every major nation on Earth. The signal is real, Dr. Chen explained to the group. Our best linguists and computers agree. This is a genuine distress call from an alien civilization. Based on the quantum signature, it was sent 3 months ago. 3 months? Asked General Morrison, the head of Earth's combined military forces. If they were under attack 3 months ago, they might all be dead by now. Maybe, Torres said. But maybe not. If there's even a chance some of them are still alive, we have to try to help them. The room erupted in arguments. Some people said it was impossible. Earth's ships were too slow and too weak. They barely had faster-than-light travel, and only on their newest experimental ships. The aliens were probably thousands of years more advanced than humans. It could be a trap, said Admiral Chen from the Chinese delegation. These Vextar might be trying to lure us into their territory so they can attack Earth. Torres stood up. He was not a tall man, but when he spoke, everyone listened. I've read this message a dozen times. You can hear the fear in every word. This Ambassador Zephyra was dying when she sent it. No one fakes that kind of desperation. He looked around the room at all the worried faces. We might be primitive compared to them. Our ships might be slow and our weapons might be weak. But we're humans. We don't leave people behind. We don't ignore cries for help. The debate went on for hours. Some countries wanted to send a small scout ship. Others wanted to prepare Earth's defenses instead. Torres kept pushing for a full response. What if it was us, he asked. What if Earth was being attacked and we sent out a distress call? Wouldn't we want someone to try to help, even if they were weaker than our enemies? Finally, the decision was made. Earth would send a rescue fleet. Every nation would contribute ships and crews. They would load their vessels with the best weapons and technology they had. It would not be much compared to alien warships, but it was everything humanity could offer. The fleet took 2 weeks to assemble. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and even converted cargo ships were fitted with weapons and faster-than-light drives. Volunteers came from every country. They knew they were probably flying toward their deaths, but they came anyway. Torres was given command of the entire fleet. As his flagship, the UES Defiance, prepared to launch, he stood on the bridge looking at Earth through the window. It might be the last time any of them saw their home planet. All ships report ready for departure, his communications officer announced. Torres nodded. Send a message to the aliens. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold on a little longer. He turned to his crew. I won't lie to you. We don't know what we're flying into. The aliens who sent that message might be dead. The enemy might be too strong for us to fight. But someone asked for help and we're going to answer. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. 57 ships carrying the hopes and determination of the human race raced through the darkness toward a distant star system. They had no idea what they would find when they arrived. They only knew that somewhere in the galaxy people were suffering, and humans did not abandon those in need. Behind them, Earth continued to turn in the sunlight, unaware that its children were about to introduce the galaxy to a new kind of warfare, the kind that came from a world where everything was dangerous, and only the strongest and most determined survived. 3 months had passed since the first Vextar ships appeared in Cathani space. What started as a surprise attack had become a systematic hunt. The black warships moved from planet to planet like a plague, leaving only death behind them. Commander Thakmor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator. Through the massive window, he watched his ships bombard another Cathani colony world. The planet's surface glowed with fires that could be seen from orbit. Soon there would be nothing left alive down there. Report, he growled to his tactical officer. Colony Zerion 7 will be completely sterilized within 6 hours, Commander. Orbital defenses were destroyed in the first wave. The population centers are burning. Thakmor nodded with satisfaction. The Cathani were even weaker than the Vextar High Command had expected. Their ships had advanced technology, but they fought like frightened children. When attacked, they tried to run or surrender instead of fighting back with proper fury. Any word from the fleeing vessels? Thakmor asked. Our hunters destroyed most of them before they could escape the system. A few small ships might have reached the outer colonies, but they will only delay the inevitable. The Vextar Empire had been expanding across the galaxy for centuries. They were a warrior race bred for conquest and violence. Their dark ships were designed for one purpose, destroying entire civilizations. They had wiped out dozens of species, and the Cathani would be just another name on their list of victories. Thakmor looked at the tactical display showing the current state of the war. Red markers indicated Vextar-controlled systems. Blue markers showed Cathani territory. There was much more red than blue now. The soft shells have no idea how to fight a real war, Thakmor said to his officers. They build pretty ships and talk about peace, but when violence comes, they fold like weak metal. Down on the surface of Zerion 7, the last defenders were being hunted through the ruins of their cities. The Cathani were a peaceful species that had evolved from plant-eating creatures. For thousands of years, they had solved conflicts through negotiation and compromise. They had explorers and scientists and artists, but they had no real soldiers. In the underground bunkers, families huddled together while the bombardment continued above. Children cried for parents who would never come home. The lucky ones died quickly in the orbital strikes. The unlucky ones would be found by Vextar ground troops who took pleasure in hunting down survivors. Linara crouched in a maintenance tunnel beneath the capital city's ruins. She was Ambassador Zephra's younger sister, and she had been visiting the colony when the attack began. Now she was one of the few government officials still alive on the planet. Her communication device crackled with reports from other bunkers. The messages were always the same. More families found and killed, more hiding places discovered and destroyed. The Vextar were thorough in their genocide. "This is Bunker 7, came a weak voice through the static. "They've found us. The blast doors won't hold much longer. Tell my children on Cathani Prime that I love them." The transmission cut off. Linara closed her eyes and added another mark to the wall beside her. 43 bunkers had fallen silent in the past week. Soon, there would be no one left to make reports. She thought about her sister Zephyra, who had been returning from peace negotiations when the war started. Zephyra's ship had been destroyed in the first wave of attacks, but Linara hoped the emergency beacon had been activated. Maybe the Galactic Council would send peacekeepers to stop this madness. But no help had come. 3 months of desperate calls for assistance had gone unanswered. Either the galaxy did not care about the Cathani, or the Vextar had successfully blocked all communications. Linara opened her portable computer and began recording another message. If she died here, maybe someone would find it someday and remember that her people had existed. "My name is Linara of the Cathani Republic. Today is the 93rd day since the Vextar invasion began. They have destroyed 18 of our 24 colony worlds. Billions of our people are dead. We have received no response to our distress calls. If anyone finds this recording, please know that we were a peaceful people who only wanted to explore the stars and learn about the universe." Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, the human fleet continued its long journey through faster-than-light space. Captain Torres spent his time studying everything Earth scientists knew about the alien message and the coordinates it contained. The target system was far from any known Galactic Council territory. Intelligence suggested it was home to a species called the Cathani, but Earth's databases had very little information about them. They appeared to be a peaceful scientific civilization that had made first contact with the galaxy about 200 years ago. "Sir," said Lieutenant Park, the fleet's communications officer, "we're receiving faint signals from the target system. The computer is trying to decode them." Torres moved to the communication station. The signals were very weak and broken up by interference, but they were definitely artificial. Someone was still transmitting from the Cathani system. "Can you clean up the signal?" "Working on it, sir. These messages are heavily encrypted, but our AI is making progress." After several hours of computer analysis, fragments of the messages became readable. Torres read them with growing horror. They were reports from survivors hiding on various planets. The reports described systematic extermination, orbital bombardments, and hunting parties searching for anyone still alive. "Dear God," Torres whispered. "They're being wiped out completely." He called a meeting of his senior officers. The briefing room on the Defiance was small and cramped, but it held the commanders of the human fleet's major ships. "The situation is worse than we thought," Torres told them. "These aliens aren't just being conquered. They're being exterminated. From what we can tell, the attackers are killing every man, woman, and child they find." Captain Williams from the destroyer. Vengeance shook her head. "Why would they do that? What's the point of genocide?" "Some species see it as the most efficient form of conquest," replied Dr. Chen, who had insisted on coming with the fleet. "Kill everyone, take their resources, move on to the next target." Captain Rodriguez from the cruiser Righteous leaned forward. "How long until we reach the system?" 17 more days at current speed," Torres answered. "By then there might not be anyone left to rescue." "Can we go faster?" asked Commander Singh from the battleship Titan. Torres had been wondering the same thing. Their ships were already pushing their faster-than-light drives harder than was safe. But maybe they could risk burning out the engines if it meant saving lives. "We can increase speed by 20%, but it might damage our drive systems. If the engines fail, we'll be stranded in deep space." The room was quiet as everyone considered the options. Finally, Captain Williams spoke up. "If we don't take the risk, those people will definitely die. If we do take the risk, maybe we can save some of them." One by one, the other commanders agreed. They would push their ships to the breaking point. It was better to risk everything than to arrive too late to matter. Torres gave the order to increase speed. Throughout the fleet, engineers pushed their faster-than-light drives past safe limits. Warning lights flashed on control panels as the ships raced toward their destination. They had no idea what they would find when they arrived. They only knew that somewhere ahead innocent people were dying and every minute counted. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kithani system. Captain Torres stood on the bridge of the Defiance staring at the tactical display in shock. The system was full of Vextar warships, their black hulls moving in lazy patterns around the planets like sharks circling wounded prey. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Park. "How many ships are there?" "Computer counts 147 enemy vessels," replied the tactical officer. "They're spread across the entire system." Torres watched the display with growing anger. The Vextar ships were bombarding planets that showed no signs of resistance. They were not fighting a war anymore. They were simply murdering everything that lived in this system. "Sir, we're detecting transmissions from the planet surfaces," Park reported. "Very weak signals. Someone down there is still alive." "Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with static and broken voices speaking in the alien language they had learned to understand. The voices were desperate, reporting that hiding places had been found and families were being killed. Torres clenched his fists as he listened to the death reports. "How many ships do we have?" he asked his tactical officer. 57, sir. All armed and ready for combat." Torres looked at the odds. 57 human ships against 147 alien warships. The enemy vessels were larger and more advanced than anything Earth had built. This should have been a hopeless battle. But Torres was not thinking about odds. He was thinking about the voices coming from the planet surfaces. Somewhere down there, families were hiding in bunkers while killers hunted them. Children were crying for parents who would never come home. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres," he said into the communication system. "We came here to help people who asked for our aid. The enemy thinks they can commit genocide while we watch. They're wrong." He turned to his tactical officer. "Target the nearest group of enemy ships. All vessels, attack formation Delta. We're going in." The human fleet accelerated toward the Vextar ships like a pack of wolves closing in for the kill. The enemy was not expecting any resistance. Their formations were loose and undisciplined. They had grown careless during months of slaughtering defenseless civilians. Commander Thakmore was reviewing casualty reports when his tactical officer suddenly shouted a warning. "Commander, unknown ships approaching from the system edge. They're on an attack course." Thakmore spun toward the main display. Dozens of strange vessels were racing toward his fleet. The ships had an odd design he had never seen before. They looked primitive compared to Vextar warships, but they were moving fast and their weapons were charging. "Who are they?" Thakmore demanded. "Are there other species in this region?" "Unknown, sir. They're not responding to our identification requests." Thakmore studied the approaching ships. They were smaller than his vessels and probably weaker, but something about their formation worried him. They moved together like a hunting pack, not like the scattered formations most civilized species used. "All ships, prepare for combat," he ordered. "Destroy these newcomers quickly so we can return to our mission." The first human ship to reach the Vextar formation was the destroyer Vengeance. Captain Williams had pushed her engines past the red line to get there first. She opened fire while still accelerating, her missiles and plasma cannons tearing into a Vextar cruiser before it could respond. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness. Williams did not slow down. She drove her ship straight through the debris field, firing at another target before the enemy could understand what was happening. Behind her, the rest of the human fleet hit the Vextar formation like a hammer. The aliens had never fought an enemy that used such aggressive tactics. Civilized species engaged in long-range duels with careful positioning and strategic withdrawals. Humans charged straight at their enemies and kept shooting until something died. The battleship Titan rammed a Vextar destroyer that was too slow to get out of the way. The collision destroyed both ships, but Commander Singh had evacuated most of his crew to escape pods before impact. The explosion took out 2 more enemy vessels that were flying too close together. Thakmore watched in horror as his orderly formation fell apart. These unknown attackers fought like wild animals. They rammed his ships, launched suicide attacks, and seemed completely willing to die as long as they took enemies with them. "What species fights like this?" he shouted at his tactical officer. "Unknown, Commander. They appear to be from a primitive world. Their technology is centuries behind ours, but they're using it very aggressively." A human-heavy cruiser, the Democracy, took massive damage from 3 Vextar ships, but kept fighting. Captain Chen ordered his crew to abandon ship, then locked the controls and drove the burning vessel into the nearest enemy battleship. Both ships vanished in a nuclear fireball. The Vextar had superior technology and numbers, but they were not prepared for enemies who fought without fear of death. Every time they destroyed a human ship, the remaining vessels seemed to get more dangerous, not less. Down on the planet's surfaces, the surviving Kithani emerged from their hiding places to witness something impossible. The unstoppable Vextar fleet was being attacked by unknown ships. Even more amazingly, the newcomers were winning. Linara crawled out of her tunnel and looked up at the sky. Explosions lit up the darkness as ships died in orbit above her. For the first time in months, some of those explosions were Vextar vessels. Her communication device crackled to life. Someone was trying to contact the planet using the old Kithani emergency frequencies. "This is Captain Torres of the Earth vessel Defiance. Are there any Kithani survivors on this planet? We received your distress call and came to help." Linara stared at the device in shock. Earth? She had never heard of a planet called Earth, but whoever these people were, they had somehow received her sister's message and come to fight the Vextar. "This is Linara of the Kithani Republic," she replied with shaking hands. "We are hiding in the ruins of the capital city. Most of our people are dead, but some are still alive in bunkers across the planet. We're going to clear the Vextar ships from orbit," Torres replied. "Then we'll send down rescue teams. Can you guide our people to the survivor locations?" "Yes, but who are you? What species are you? Why did you come here?" There was a pause before Torres answered. "We're humans. We come from a planet called Earth. We came because you asked for help." Linara did not understand. The message had been sent to the Galactic Council, not to some unknown species called humans. But she did not care about the details. After months of hopelessness, someone had finally answered their cry for help. In orbit, the battle continued to rage. The Vextar were slowly adapting to human tactics, but it was too late. Captain Torres had split his fleet into small groups that attacked from multiple directions. Every time the aliens tried to form a defensive line, human ships appeared from unexpected angles. The cruiser Righteous, badly damaged and venting atmosphere, made a final run at Thakmor's flagship. Captain Rodriguez had lost most of his crew, but his weapons still worked. He fired everything he had at the Devastator's engines. The massive Vextar ship shuddered as explosions tore through its engine compartments. Power flickered across its decks as critical systems failed. Thakmor found himself drifting helplessly while smaller human ships closed in for the kill. "Commander, we should retreat," his tactical officer said. "These humans are not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're willing to die to destroy us." Thakmor looked at the tactical display. He had lost over 30 ships to an enemy that should have been easy to defeat. The surviving human vessels were damaged but still fighting with the same desperate fury. "All ships withdraw to the outer system," he ordered. "We need to regroup and request reinforcements." As the Vextar fleet retreated, the humans did not pursue. Instead, they moved to secure the planets where survivors were hiding. Linara watched human shuttles descend through the atmosphere, carrying medical supplies and rescue teams. The first human she met was a tall woman with dark skin and kind eyes. The woman spoke through a translation device that had quickly learned the Kithani language. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen," the human said. "We're here to help." "How many survivors are there?" "I don't know," Linara replied. "Maybe thousands across all the bunkers. But who are you people? Why would you risk your lives for strangers?" Dr. Chen smiled sadly. "Because someone asked for help. On our world, we have a saying, we leave no one behind." Linara looked up at the sky where human ships were patrolling to protect the planet. These strange creatures had come from across the galaxy to save people they had never met. She did not understand what kind of species would do such a thing. She would learn soon enough that humans were something the galaxy had never seen before. Warriors who fought not for conquest, but for the protection of others. High Admiral Vexkarn read the battle reports with growing disbelief. An entire Vexitar battle group had been defeated by unknown primitives using inferior technology. Commander Thakmor's descriptions of the enemy tactics sounded like the ravings of a broken mind. "They ram our ships with their own vessels?" Vexkarn asked his intelligence officer. "They sacrifice themselves to destroy single targets?" "According to all reports, sir. These humans appear to have no concept of self-preservation. They fight until their ships are destroyed, then continue fighting in spacesuits until they die." Vexkarn studied the tactical recordings that Thakmor had sent. The human ships moved in coordination patterns unlike anything in Vextar military doctrine. They attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, used damaged vessels as weapons, and seemed to anticipate Vextar responses before they happened. What do we know about their homeworld? Very little, sir. Our long-range sensors indicate a planet called Earth and a system they call Sol. The planet appears to be a Class 12 death world. Vexkarn's blood ran cold. Death worlds were planets so dangerous that most civilized species could not survive there. The few species that evolved on such worlds were invariably aggressive, adaptable, and extremely difficult to kill. Send 3 full battle fleets to the Kithani system, he ordered. If these humans want to play war with the Vextar Empire, we will teach them what real warfare looks like. Back in the Kithani system, Captain Torres was learning about his new allies. The surviving Kithani had been rescued from their bunkers and brought aboard human ships for medical treatment. What Torres discovered amazed him. The Kithani were incredibly advanced in technology and science. Their ships could cross the galaxy in days. Their medical knowledge could cure diseases that killed humans, and their understanding of physics was centuries ahead of Earth's. But they had no concept of violence or warfare. We have never needed armies, explained Linara as she sat in the Defiance's medical bay. For thousands of years, we solved conflicts through discussion and compromise. When we met other species in the galaxy, we assumed they would be the same. Dr. Chen was examining Kithani medical data on her computer. Their species evolved from plant-eating creatures on a very stable world, she told Torres. No predators, no natural disasters, no resource competition. They never developed aggressive instincts. Torres shook his head in amazement. How did they survive first contact with hostile species? The Galactic Council protects peaceful civilizations, Linara explained. There are rules against attacking non-aggressive species. The Vextar were supposed to be bound by those rules. What changed? Asked Dr. Chen. Linara's expression grew dark. The Vextar Empire has been growing more aggressive for decades. They claim that peaceful species are weak and deserve to be conquered. The Galactic Council keeps trying to negotiate with them instead of stopping them. Torres understood the problem. The galaxy was full of civilized species that preferred diplomacy to warfare. When faced with an enemy that only understood violence, they were helpless. How many species have the Vextar destroyed? He asked. Dozens over the past century. The Council always protests and demands investigations, but they never send military forces to stop the genocide. Torres walked to the window of the medical bay and looked out at the Kithani planet below. Human rescue teams were still searching the ruins for survivors. They had found thousands of people hiding in underground shelters, but billions more were dead. Sir, came Lieutenant Park's voice over the communication system. Long-range sensors are detecting a large fleet approaching the system. Vextar signatures. Torres hurried to the bridge. The tactical display showed 3 massive formations of ships heading toward them. Each formation was larger than the entire human fleet. How long until they arrive? Torres asked. 6 hours, sir. Torres looked at his remaining ships. The battle with Thakmor's fleet had cost him 12 vessels, and many of the survivors were badly damaged. Now he was facing odds of nearly 10 to 1. Sir, we should retreat, suggested his tactical officer. We've rescued who we could. There's no point in throwing away our ships against impossible odds. Torres thought about the thousands of Kithani refugees now aboard his ships. He thought about the families still hiding on other planets in the system. He thought about the Vextar Empire spreading across the galaxy like a plague, destroying anyone too peaceful to fight back. No, he said finally. We're not running. Send a message to all ships. We're going to make a stand. As the human fleet prepared for the final battle, something unexpected happened. The Kithani survivors began volunteering to help. Despite having no military training, they offered to operate sensors, work in engineering, and assist with damage control. Why would you do this? Torres asked Linara. Your people don't fight wars. You came across the galaxy to save us, she replied. The least we can do is help you defend our home. Dr. Chen had been studying the approaching Vextar fleet with growing concern. Marcus, these ships are different from the ones we fought before. They're larger, newer, and probably carrying much better weapons. How much better? Their main battleships could probably destroy our entire fleet without taking significant damage. Torres nodded grimly. He had expected as much. The Vextar Empire had probably sent their best forces to deal with the humans who had humiliated them. But Torres had been thinking about human military history during the past few hours. Throughout their evolution, humans had faced enemies that were bigger, stronger, and better armed. They had survived by being smarter, more adaptable and more determined than their opponents. All ships, this is Torres. We're about to face an enemy that outguns us in every way. They have better technology, better ships, and more experience. But they have one weakness. He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. They don't understand how humans fight. They think war is about technology and numbers. They're about to learn that sometimes the most important weapon is the refusal to give up. The Vextar fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. High Admiral Vexkarn expected to find the primitive humans fleeing in terror. Instead, he found them waiting in orbit around the main Kithani planet. "They're actually going to fight us?" he asked in amazement. "With those few damaged ships?" "It appears so, sir. They're moving to attack positions." Vexkarn laughed. "This will be over quickly. All ships advance. Destroy these insects and finish cleansing this system." The massive Vextar fleet moved forward like a metal storm. Their ships were sleek and deadly, carrying weapons that could destroy planets. Against them, the small human fleet looked like toys. But Torres had no intention of fighting a conventional battle. As the enemy approached, he split his forces into small groups and spread them throughout the system. When the Vextar tried to engage one group, the others would attack from different directions. The humans also did something that shocked the Vextar. They used the Kithani planets as cover. No civilized species would risk damaging inhabited worlds during combat, but the humans hid behind planets and moons, forcing the Vextar to choose between pursuing them and avoiding civilian casualties. "They're using the planets as shields," reported Vexakarn's tactical officer. "We can't use our heavy weapons without risking damage to the surface." "Then we'll destroy them with lighter weapons," Vexkarn replied. But he was beginning to understand that these humans did not fight like any enemy he had faced before. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic military history. The humans fought like cornered predators, using every trick and advantage they could find. They hid in asteroid fields, ambushed isolated ships, and coordinated attacks with a precision that seemed impossible for such a primitive species. Dr. Chen, watching from the bridge of the Defiance, began to understand what made humans so effective in combat. "We're persistence hunters," she explained to Linara. "On Earth, humans evolved to chase prey across vast distances until it collapsed from exhaustion. We never give up, and we learn from every encounter." As the battle continued, the humans adapted to Vextar tactics faster than their enemies could adapt to human unpredictability. Every time the aliens thought they had found a pattern, the humans changed their strategy. High Admiral Vexkarn found himself fighting an enemy that should have been easy to defeat, but somehow kept slipping away and striking back. These humans were like a virus in his fleet systems, causing damage far beyond what their numbers should have allowed. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander." "Put it through." Captain Torres appeared on the main screen. He looked tired and determined, like a man who had nothing left to lose. "Admiral Vexkarn, I assume," Torres said. "I'm Captain Torres of the Earth Defense Force. I have a message for you and your empire. You are in no position to make demands, human. Surrender now and we will make your deaths quick." Torres smiled grimly. "I'm not here to surrender. I'm here to deliver a warning. You came to this system to commit genocide against innocent people. That ends now. You cannot stop the Vextar Empire with your handful of primitive ships." "Maybe not today," Torres admitted. "But you've made a mistake, Admiral. You've shown the galaxy what the Vextar Empire really is." Supreme Commander Vexmore paced the bridge of his flagship, the Extinction. Around him, holographic displays showed the locations of every Vextar fleet in the galaxy. For the first time in decades, many of those fleets were reporting defeats. "Explain to me again how a pre-faster-than-light species has destroyed 3 of our battle groups," he demanded of his intelligence chief. "Humans appear to be from a Class 12 Deathworld, Supreme Commander. They have evolved aggressive traits that make them extremely effective in combat. They also seem to be inspiring other species to resist our expansion." Vexmore studied the tactical reports with growing rage. The humans had not only survived the attack on the Kithani system, they had somehow turned it into a victory. Worse, news of their success had spread to other species that the Vextar were trying to conquer. "How many species have refused to surrender since the Kithani incident?" 17, sir. They all claim to be waiting for human assistance. Then we will destroy these humans completely. Gather every available ship. We will burn their homeworld to ash and make an example that the galaxy will never forget. Meanwhile, in the Cathani system, Captain Torres was dealing with an unexpected problem. Ships were arriving from across the galaxy, but they were not enemies. They were representatives from the Galactic Council, and they wanted to talk. The lead ship was massive and elegant, designed to impress rather than fight. When it docked with the human flagship, a delegation of aliens walked onto the Defiance's bridge. Torres had never seen such a strange collection of species. Tall beings made of crystalline material, floating creatures that looked like jellyfish, and humanoid figures in advanced environmental suits. "I am Counselor Zalveth of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force," announced the leader, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. "We have come to investigate reports of unauthorized military action in this system." Torres studied the alien delegation. They looked like politicians, not soldiers. Their uniforms were decorated with symbols of peace and cooperation, not weapons or armor. "Unauthorized by whom?" Torres asked. "By the Galactic Council, of course. Military intervention in interspecies conflicts requires approval from the full council." "You had no authority to attack Vextar forces." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "The Vextar were committing genocide. Were we supposed to ask permission before stopping mass murder?" Counselor Zalveth looked uncomfortable. "The proper procedure is to file a complaint with the council and wait for investigation teams to determine if intervention is necessary." "How long does that process take?" Torres asked. "Typically 6 to 8 standard months for initial review, then another year for full investigation and debate." Torres stared at the alien in disbelief. "You would have let billions of people die while you held committee meetings?" "The council must consider all perspectives before taking action. The Vextar Empire has rights under galactic law, just like any other member species." Linara, who had been listening from the side of the bridge, suddenly spoke up. "Counselor, the Vextar killed my entire family. They murdered billions of my people. What rights did we have while they were hunting us through the ruins of our cities?" The counselor shifted uncomfortably. The situation was complicated. The Vextar claimed they were responding to Cathani aggression. "What aggression?" Linara demanded. "We have no weapons. We have no army. The only aggressive thing we ever did was ask for help." Torres was beginning to understand why the Vextar Empire had been able to expand unchecked for so long. The Galactic Council was more interested in following procedures than stopping atrocities. "Counselor," Torres said carefully, "we received a distress call from a dying civilization. We came to help. If that violates your laws, then your laws are wrong." Before Zalveth could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Park's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching the system. Vextar signatures. Over 300 ships." Torres felt his blood turn cold. 300 ships was more than the entire human space navy. This was not a battle fleet. It was an extermination force. "Counselor," he said, "I suggest you and your delegation leave this system immediately. Things are about to get very dangerous." "We are neutral observers," Zalveth replied. "The council ship will remain to document any violations of galactic law." Torres shook his head. These aliens still did not understand what they were facing. The Vextar were coming to kill everyone in the system, including neutral observers. The massive enemy fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. The ships were so numerous that they blotted out the stars. At their center was a vessel so large it looked like a mobile space station. "This is Supreme Commander Vexmore of the Vextar Empire," came a transmission that filled the entire system. "To the primitive species that dares to challenge us, your interference ends here. We will destroy every ship in this system, then burn your homeworld until nothing remains." Torres looked at his tactical display. The human fleet had 38 ships remaining after the previous battles. Most of them were damaged and running low on ammunition. Against 300 fresh enemy vessels, they had no chance of survival. But Torres was not thinking about survival. He was thinking about the thousands of Cathani refugees aboard his ships. He was thinking about Linara and her determination to see justice for her people. He was thinking about the message they would send to the galaxy. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres. Today we face impossible odds against an enemy that wants to destroy everything we stand for. They think that superior numbers and technology will make us surrender. They're wrong." He paused, looking around his bridge at the crew that had followed him across the galaxy. We are humans. We evolved on a world where everything tried to kill us and we survived by never giving up. Today we show the galaxy what that means. The human fleet moved to attack positions around the Kithani homeworld. They were vastly outnumbered. But they formed their battle lines with the same determination their ancestors had shown when facing impossible odds on Earth. The battle began with a massive bombardment from the Vextar fleet. Human ships disappeared in balls of fire as the enemy's superior weapons found their targets. But for every ship destroyed, the survivors fought harder. The destroyer Courage, with half its hull blown away, rammed a Vextar battleship at full speed. The cruiser Liberty, drifting helplessly with no engines, used its remaining power to self-destruct in the middle of an enemy formation. Dr. Chen, working frantically at her station, suddenly looked up with excitement. "Marcus, I'm detecting massive faster-than-light signatures approaching the system." "Multiple fleets. More Vextar?" Torres asked. "No, I don't think so. The signatures are from dozens of different species." As if materializing from empty space, ships began appearing throughout the system. They came in all shapes and sizes: sleek vessels from advanced civilizations, sturdy craft from industrial species, even primitive ships that looked barely capable of spaceflight. "This is Admiral Kreshta of the Zephyrian Defense Force," came a transmission. "We received word that humans were fighting the Vextar. We came to help. This is Captain Mordak of the Regelian Free Company. Any enemy of the Vextar is a friend of ours." More and more voices joined the communications channel as ships from across the galaxy arrived to join the battle. Species that had never worked together were coordinating their attacks against the common enemy. Counselor Zalveth stared at his displays in shock. "This is impossible." "These species have been feuding for centuries. They never cooperate on anything." "They're cooperating now," Torres replied. "Sometimes it takes a common enemy to bring people together." The tide of battle was turning. The Vextar fleet, despite its size, was being overwhelmed by attacks from every direction. Species that had never met before were working together with a coordination that amazed everyone watching. "Supreme Commander, Vexmore found his perfect formation falling apart as enemy ships appeared from impossible angles. These newcomers fought with the same desperate fury as the humans, throwing themselves at his forces without regard for their own safety. All ships, retreat to the outer system," he ordered. "We will regroup and call for reinforcements." "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving hundreds of faster-than-light signatures throughout the galaxy. It appears that multiple species are mobilizing against us." Vexmore realized with growing horror that the human intervention had triggered something much larger than a single battle. Word of their resistance to the Vextar Empire had spread across the galaxy, inspiring other species to fight back. As the Vextar fleet retreated, Captain Torres received a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. "This is High Counselor Remtar, speaking for the emergency session of the full council. In light of recent events, we are prepared to offer humanity immediate membership in the Galactic Council, with full military authority, to combat ongoing genocidal activities." Torres smiled grimly. Now that someone else had taken the initiative, the council was suddenly eager to act. "We accept," he replied. "But understand this. We didn't fight the Vextar for political recognition. We fought them because they were murdering innocent people." "We understand, Admiral Torres. The galaxy has learned much from humanity's example.